If blowing shit up is not the thing to do, what should anybody be doing right now? If we're going to be driven over the cliff, and our government's obviously not going to help us because they're in the petroleum business and things are as dire as they seem to be, why don't we all blow stuff up? Those are words from director Kelly Reichardt on her 2013 film, Night Moves. Seeing Faces in Movies is a podcast where each month I focus on the works of a different director or cinematographer, and each week I invite a guest on to discuss a film and the artist's filmography. I'm your host, Felicia, and today we're talking about Night Moves. So, very quick synopsis of the film is three radical environmentalists look to execute the protest of their lives, the explosion of a hydroelectric dam. The film stars Jesse Eisenberg as Josh, Dakota Fanning as Dina, Peter Sarsgaard as Harmon, and Alia Shawkat as Surprise. It's written by Jonathan Raymond and Kelly Reichardt, cinematography by Christopher Bloveld, directed and edited by Kelly Reichardt, music by Jeff Grace, costumes by Vicky Farrell, and visual effects by Chris Connolly and Craig Waxman. Today I have Frieda Beckerman on the show, who was previously on our episode on the Green Ray, which is from our Eric Romer series. I'm very excited to have you on for the Kelly Reichardt series this month. This is very exciting to me. Thanks for coming on.
Working on my night moves.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to get that out of the way. And one more. Working on my night cheese. See, that's a deep cut. If you get that, good for you.
But we're here to talk about Night Moves, if that wasn't obvious enough. Kelly Reichardt's Night Moves, not the Gene Hackman Night Moves. Apologies if you thought this was going to be the Arthur Penn film, but I think this is a better Night Moves, in my opinion. But I'm very curious to hear what your relationship is to Kelly Reichardt's films and maybe how many of them you've seen so far.
First of all, you stole my Gene Hackman joke that I was going to make.
Sorry.
About this being the other Night Moves. But that's okay. Okay, so Kelly Reichardt. I want to say you and I, Felicia, we're sisters in Reichardt. We're just mega fans. She's only made a handful of movies. She is honestly, the only one I can think of off the top of my head that is 100% in control of her own movies. She is not influenced by major studios, and her movies are better for it. They're real thinkers, and you can imagine a studio exec coming to her and being like, "So what's this character's motivation? Like, we need to spell it out, blah, 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 blah." And her she just does not do that. And I respect that so much. She makes these movies that are so well paced and interesting. And she's the only one doing it, really. I personally flock to the next Kelly Reichardt movie because they are all that good, in my opinion. How do you feel?
No, I agree 100%. And it's great to have a woman who is in full control of her films, especially in this day and age, or even ever, to be honest. I love reading interviews by her and how she's just very no bullshit, low maintenance, but also has a huge love for film because if you don't know, listening to this, her main job still to this day is being a film professor. So that's where she makes her money. And then she just makes films as a side gig. To be honest, that's really the dream.
Absolutely.
Even though I'm sure it would be nice to be making money from your films or your art, but I think it's even less pressure to be like, I am not doing this for any money. I don't care what it makes. And that's why she's able to make the films that she makes, which is fantastic. I really wish we had more of that, but as long as we have her, at least there's something out there. And she's been making them a lot more regularly than she was used to have the ability to do because people now actually want to be like, when's the next Reichardt film coming out, which speaking of, there is one in the cinema right now, which probably will be turning to streaming quite soon, probably maybe by the time this is out next month in December, but The Mastermind is out
Have you seen it yet?
now. Have you?
No, I'm waiting to watch it on an airplane or something.
As one should.
Um, no, I do plan on seeing it as soon as it comes to streaming, and I'll even pay for it.
Yeah, it has a limited run with like a lot of her stuff. The only one I've ever been able to see in a theater was Certain Women. I saw that when it came out. But Mastermind has a limited run in Toronto at least, and probably still in LA. I doubt it's on a lot of screens there.
It's on like 2.
There you go. Which is a huge city to just have 2 screens, but I'm sure the
Yeah.
people everyone I know who's seen it has enjoyed it. So I know we're in good hands for it. But we're here talking about Night Moves, which is her film from 2013, which at this rate now is 12 years old, which is kind of wild because I do remember when this movie came out because that was a huge time for Jesse Eisenberg, I'm pretty sure. So anything that
Oh,
he
yeah.
was associated with was kind of huge. I didn't see it when it came out. I only saw it for the first time for the series. It was one of the last of hers to watch. But I kind of want to start off the first segment by maybe, I don't know if addressing the elephant in the room is the right way to talk about it, but addressing the fact that if you've seen other Reichardt films and the way a lot of people talk about it, it's not like her other ones in the sense that it has more of a genre movie feel, but it's still very much a Reichardt film. I'm wondering how you feel about approaching that because there is something that's a little bit different in this than her other movies. Like, this is not the same as Old Joy or Certain Women or even something like Showing Up, her most recent one, but it still feels very much like her essence in the film.
I think that's interesting that you brought that up, actually, because I do think she has a real talent for taking a genre and kind of flipping it on its head. And I
Hmm.
see that with her first film, which is kind of like I think I heard her describe it in an interview as a road movie that never goes on the road. I think Meek's Cutoff is a great subversive Western from a woman's perspective. And I see this as, I guess you would call it, I don't know, a heist film, sort of
Thriller.
supposedly an action film thriller. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even a little noir, but
Hmm.
of course, our queen doesn't take it in that direction. I think she goes for like the hyper realistic, plausible
Hmm.
narrative every time. That's what I see it as. What about you?
No, I agree. I think exactly. I'm glad that you brought up River of Grass and Meek's Cutoff because those are genre films that are kind of, I don't know, maybe subverting the genre or commenting on the genre. But it's definitely her version of those
Hmm.
genres. Like, especially something like a Meek's Cutoff is like one, we don't really get that many Westerns in general nowadays, but there is not a lot of female or women fronted Westerns. And then it to also be kind of meditative is something that you don't get often. And I love just I don't know, audacity. Audacity sounds like it's negative, but I think it's a great word for her to just be like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I
Absolutely.
view this story, and this is how I'm telling it. And I think a lot of this with Night Moves, a lot of it reminded me of like those late 60s, 70s political thrillers. Especially like the Bakula stuff, like, Clute and Parallax View and one that I'm gonna say because it's for my double bill, but those that were kind of post-hippie American culture of those people who are like, "I am annoyed with the government, but I'm not doing it in a peaceful way. I am going to fuck shit up in my own way." And it's very calm and serene, and I think that's what this movie is, and I love the way this movie opens with those shots of the outdoors and the water, because it sets the tone for a Kelly Reichardt film, but also sets a tone for how these characters talk to one another. I will say, anything that I've read about this film is people have mentioned that the script is very minimalist. I think that it's not as minimal as her other films. I think there's a lot more talking than this film than her others. But they're still not over explaining. They're not like, this is the reason why I'm doing this because, in my childhood, I had this
Yeah,
moment.
that's the studio note that that she would get.
Exactly. I love the way she introduces characters, and I love the fact that we don't know what they did yesterday when we started off this movie. We don't know what they did yesterday. We don't know what led them to this moment. We just know that this is their goal and this is how they're going about it. Jumping off your note there with this, like the studio notes of over explaining and having to give reference as to why these characters or what their motive is, as opposed to just trusting the audience to be on board. I'm wondering how you feel about the way she navigates that and why it's so easy for the audience to just be like, this is why they're doing this, and we're going to follow them and the mistakes that they make as they're doing something that they view as important and maybe you as a viewer think is also important.
Oh man. Yeah, she's so good at getting everyone on board ASAP. Like we're not wasting time with backstory. We don't know much about Jesse Eisenberg or his character. Just enough. Just enough to get us going.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I think it plays into a larger theme really well. And I want to say that theme is trying to address a problem that is so much bigger than yourself, which I
Hmm.
think people in general can relate to. I mean, I think most people that watch this movie are pretty much on board with that global warming is bad, just as a baseline assumption.
Hmm.
So we don't have to walk through understanding what these characters went through to get, oh, my mom died of cancer from living next to the nuclear plant. That's a common
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
Uh, and she just doesn't bother with all that pointless exposition because I think what was really interesting and what she's following is that these characters have valid viewpoints, but they've just taken extremes to get there, and ultimately, it is nothing. It doesn't even make a difference. So, what does
Yeah.
it mean? What does it mean to do something to act for a cause greater than yourself, knowing that there won't even probably be any worthwhile results? It's violent, it's risky.
Hmm.
Why do it at all? Like these are the existential questions that are more important to get to. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. I agree. I think that what I definitely enjoy is that she treats the audience with a lot of respect. And
Yes.
she also gives them grace that if you don't fully, I don't know, get it in air quotes, or you're not fully on board the first time, you would get more out of it on the second watch. Which I think a lot of her films, especially going back and rewatching her other stuff for this series, I'm getting so much more out of them on rewatch, which is always a great thing to do when you're rewatching movies. But I think it just would be a disservice to give too much background to these characters
Mhm.
because it wouldn't make sense,
Yes.
especially for the other two, like Dina and Harmon, played by Dakota Fanning and Peter Sarsgaard, respectively. I think that those characters, we're only just supposed to see them for those blips because they just kind of disappear for most of the rest of the film post the act of the explosion. What I do like about this, and I read this in an article I was reading about the film too, and I thought this along the same lines, is that the film is never trying to teach you a lesson. It's never trying to impose anything on you or teach you about anything. It's living in a world that's fully like, this is factual. What's happening to the world and the environment is bad. And these characters are like, this is what we need. This is what we think we need to do about it. Whereas other films would feel like we need to explain why
Yeah.
the earth is all these things are bad and why it makes sense for them to do that. This is just like a fact for this film. And it's obviously a fact for a lot of people in real life too, which I think is a great way to do it. And even with the start where there's like a documentary that they're watching, like it's very
Mhm.
short clips that we're seeing, that could be seen as like explaining the character's motivations, but I think it just kind of feels like these, farm life, hippie-ish people would be sitting in a weird room watching a documentary. I do love the character differences that we get with like Dakota Fanning's character sitting up front and asking questions and Josh being in the back, a little bit of a creeper, looking just like he hates life the whole time. I love that scene. I'm curious to hear what you think about having that inclusion at the beginning as we get into maybe it's a bit of an explanation as to the characters without them having to explain it. I don't know how you view it.
Oh, definitely that, yes. 'Cause, we do see kind of how they react to the film that tells us about them. Gosh, I think, it plays into it's foreshadowing actually because it kind of plays into this, theme of, they don't know what to do, and this is, like, their solution. Because the
Mhm.
end of the film kind of, is, cheesy and optimistic. It's like, we need to all band together and,
Mhm.
save the environment when ultimately that's too large of an ask, and you can easily see the room saying, "Well, actually, we should be doing eco-terrorism."
Yeah.
That's really the only way that we can send a message, because we've just gone too far. And these are all characters that live on the fringe of society. Josh lives
Mhm.
in a co-op. Harmon lives in the woods. They don't operate in a they wouldn't be watching this at a movie theater. Like, they're just
Yeah.
off grid. So, I think the film raises the questions that the movie is kind of asking is like, what do you do? Like, what do you do in this situation? And you have to decide now. Like, it's an
Mhm.
imminent disaster. Um, so that's what I kind of, saw it as. And yeah, Jesse Eisenberg's certainly a loner, and that's what you see. He's not out and talking to anyone. He's not only on the fringe of society, he's on the fringe of his small group, of family and friends that he's around. He's just totally alone, and
Yeah.
yeah.
He's very surly, that's for sure. But sometimes it feels like he's being, he's contemplating and he's thinking really hard. And sometimes it
Oh,
just feels like he doesn't
absolutely.
know what to do or say.
Yes, it's like the acting is him demonstrating that he does not know what to think. That is
Yeah.
honestly, he was great in this role because you could see him thinking, which he did most of the
Yes.
movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think people give Jesse Eisenberg a little bit of flack for playing like the awkward, neurotic guy. And I think he does something very different here. And there's a bit of awkwardness, but there's a bit of awkwardness for just someone who seems like like we said, we doesn't really know what to do. There's one really good scene that I thought about a lot after was when he comes back with the pizzas and he hears what he, I guess, assumes is the two sleeping together and he just leaves them there and he's like, okay, I guess I'll just go walk in the woods, which I find
Oh,
very
I love
funny.
that scene too. And did you notice he picked up 2 twigs, two pieces of grass, and he was kind of playing with them,
I didn't.
together. And that was something I only
Ah,
noticed on a second watch, which, is exactly what I did. You said her films are good on
mm-hmm,
a second watch, and that's kinda what happened to me. I was able to pick up these little details that I didn't see the first time, and it was all about their characters and how much, depth that
mm-hmm,
they had. So, yeah, he was walking in the woods after he kind of heard them having sex, and he was just walking, and he was picking up, a blade of grass, and he was splitting it in 2 and playing with the 2 pieces. Maybe that
mm,
kinda signals his subconscious loneliness. Maybe honestly, I think maybe second viewing, he had a crush on Dakota Fanning, but
yeah.
perhaps did not know how to address it or go about it, or knew it was inappropriate in some way, at least to him.
Yeah, that's how I read it very much, that he did maybe a little bit, but not enough to one act on it, and also
Yeah.
felt like this is not the time to do this.
Yes,
Um,
he took it very seriously.
yeah. Whereas Harmon was like, well, you know, he's living
Yeah.
on his own wavelength of humanity on his spectrum there. Very well played by Peter Sarsgaard.
Oh,
He has a
genius.
great scene.
Great.
He has a lot of great scenes. He's always good in every movie. He really is
I
always good.
agree.
Um, he feels like he fits in really well in a Kelly Reichardt. There's one fun scene where they're driving to the the campsite where the dam is, and they cut to Josh and Dina in the car, and they cut to him, and he's just like the loud music and him playing. It just feels like, the contrast of them taking this seriously and not taking it seriously. There is something that you mentioned briefly. You mentioned eco-terrorism.
Mm.
And I read an article. A lot of me is going to say, is going to be me saying I read an article throughout this chat, but I say that because I don't often do series on directors who are even alive, let alone still making films regularly in the age of everyone having a blog or
Yeah.
everyone having access to interview directors. So there's a lot of people who get to interview her because she seems to be always willing to talk to someone who just wants to talk to her about her films, which is fantastic because I've seen a lot of random ass blogs who got to interview her, but there's one that was like I don't know, they call themselves, and I'll link it in the show notes. They call themselves, what's the website? Anarchist Agency, was the website. So they were on the fence about the film. And
Mm.
actually, they didn't even, I don't think they interviewed her for this. They interviewed Jonathan Raymond, who's the writer. But I did read a lot of interviews with her about this. But they were interviewing Jonathan Raymond, who co-wrote this with her. And they were on the fence about the film because they are environmental activists, and they didn't like the way their people in quotes were being portrayed in this film because
Or like murderers.
oftentimes, yes. And from reading other things about with Kelly, she was like, she got people who would comment that being like, well, it feels weird for people who are actually trying to make a difference to be portrayed this way. And she's like, well, the whole thing is that there are people on the left. Just because you're on the left, it doesn't make you a perfect human being. They tried to do something, but you still have your own personality within that. And the mistake of killing someone, um, trying to do something grander than themselves, like which was, I'm hoping if you're listening to this, you have watched it and you know that when they blew up the dam, that they accidentally killed a human being, but
Yeah.
just purely accidental. It was not like something they meant, but obviously it weighed on them because that was not their purpose. But then Josh, you know, uh, ends up taking it a little further when he realizes that his mission is going to be fully compromised because he would like to continue doing this because he realizes, as you said, that this is just kind of a blip and it didn't really make much of a difference. But bringing it back to the eco-terrorism versus eco-activism, the reason why there's a group of people who didn't like this is because of the way they were portrayed and especially the ending. I think it's great to show both sides of things. It's so easy to just be like people on the right are bad when there are bad people on both sides and there are people who mean well and can't do the right thing because we're all human beings. Wondering how you feel about the fact that people are disliking it for that reason, um, which is maybe a loaded question, but wondering how you feel about that reaction maybe to the film.
Yeah, I that's interesting. I think that it makes sense from their point of view that they would feel this way, and I think the response is good because it is true. If you're in a leftist circle, sometimes, and I know this from experience, sometimes you can feel a little holier than thou, because
Mhm.
you're going to be on the right side of history and all of that. And I also, when they were watching the movie and everyone was sort of arguing, That's also something that happens a lot in these circles. No one comes to a
Yeah.
conclusion because there are no leaders, which is part of the philosophy, obviously, but it leads to a whole lot of talk and not a lot of action.
Hmm.
So, I think she really actually did them a compliment by portraying them as realistically as she did. She treated these characters like they were real people within a real situation and how they would honestly react to it. She was very human with them. I think it is important, yeah, to portray both sides as complicated as they are. Um,
Hmm.
as a film lover, I say this, um,
Yeah.
and I actually was maybe I'm jumping ahead, but the ending was the best part for me. I loved the ending purely
Hmm.
as a film appreciator. I thought it really just fit into what the whole movie was trying to say. We could talk about the ending when we get there, but
Hmm.
it really uh, made the movie a higher piece of art for me. So yeah, I also am curious if you had read anything about how the movie sort of was similar to the Monkey Wrench Gang, which was a book from the '70s about a group of eco terrorists, but it's kind of not really the same story. Maybe the same sort of like setup, like they're all going to blow
Hmm.
up something up. I read it a long time ago. I don't remember anything about it.
No, no one mentioned it.
Yeah, I would say my double feature for this. I'm jumping ahead. My
It's
double
okay.
feature for this would be How to Blow Up a Pipeline, a movie that came out a couple years ago, that I saw and is a far less superior movie to this one because it is so unrealistic. It's super
Mm.
Hollywood. They have the scene where the mother's dying of cancer from the nuclear factory. Yeah, a kid gets hit up on TikTok because he knows how to do explosives, and they're like, "Hey, want to go join this eco-terrorist ring in the desert?" And he's like, "Sure." But, if that were to actually happen, that would be the FBI, like, fishing
Yeah.
for you to do something dangerous so they could arrest you. And, the message was too shiny and positive and perfect, and what's so great about this movie is that it's so depressing. It's the realistic viewpoint on how these things go. It is, it is as sad as reality is, usually. So that's how I feel. That is interesting what the anarchist said. Yeah.
They didn't fully hate the film. They just thought it, and I get it because I mean, I consider myself someone who's very in tune with the environment and very conscious, but I definitely know that I don't do enough. I'm not out there as much as I would like to be because, I definitely let life get in the way of doing things that are more important than that. But the people who do have the opportunity to do that, I get that in their mind, it's like, why not portray them? I don't know. They want to obviously be seen as a hero because everyone wants to be seen as a hero.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so it's hard to have that portrayal by someone they probably trusted. But I think it's better to have the, because she's not saying that, all these people are evil. She's saying there's
No.
one person who just didn't know how to react to the possibility of being caught. And that's why
Yes.
that happened. It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with him also loving the environment. That's a
No,
him thing.
yeah. It was the character for sure.
Exactly. But I could see that people would read it differently. But I think that the thesis of the film kind of lies in, there's one big scene after Jesse gets back, or Josh gets back to the commune, the co-op, and it's in the news, and they're having their breakfast, individually, and there's kind of a discussion between the man who owns the farm and one of the workers, and the workers is like, "Oh, this is great, this is gonna maybe spark a fire. More people might be
Yeah.
inspired to do this."
Start a revolution of some kind.
Yeah, and the other guy was like, this seems more like a theater act. Like this is just one dam out of however many that you
Yeah.
are around. You'd have to blow them all up to make a difference. And both sides are very much valid. And I think that's what the
Yeah.
film is talking about, is that like it's no one way to go about change.
Yeah, because it's such a complicated question, what to do. You can
Exactly.
see both sides, yeah.
I mean, they asked that right from the start. What are you supposed to do about this? And there's no way that a small group of people is going to make a difference, but they can inspire other people to do it. I think just having knowledge out there is what usually inspires people to make change. But I mean, we see it in everyday life, what's going on today, that it's difficult to make those moves, those night moves, as one might say. um, which I like that it's nuanced. I would not, I wouldn't expect anything less of Kelly to do.
Oh, yeah, in any other director's hands,
Oh gosh.
it would lose that perfect balance.
Yeah. It would take the thriller genre way too seriously and be like,
Mhm.
let's ramp this up. Whereas like like you said at the beginning, like her pacing is so good. And I know a lot of people consider it slow cinema and a lot of people consider it slow, but I think it's taking its time to get to where it needs to do instead of rushing through things to gain, tension where it doesn't need to be. Like most of this movie, there's a few tense moments and you feel it. Like obviously the explosion scene, or like when they're about to decide if they need to deactivate the bomb or not, but
Mhm.
also the scene where she has to buy Dakota's character, Dina, needs
That
to
was a
buy
great
the.
scene, the
That's
fertilizer.
great. She's also great in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, she really is. She was,
She is.
supposed to do Twilight right after, and she said she didn't wanna leave set, because this was still kind of like her early
Yeah.
adult career, kind of move that she was making, her own night moves.
I
Um,
mean,
um, yeah, no, she was great, and, speaking of the tension, really what was so good about the pacing was that there were tons of little moments of tension that,
mhm,
complemented the bigger ones. I mean, obviously, the scene where the guy is parked and he's changing his tire right next to the dam that's about to blow up in 30 minutes,
mhm,
that's an extremely tense moment, but there are all these little things that she plants in the background or just like little moments that kind of disappear and then they just sort of like stay in your mind like, "Oh man, what if someone recognizes Harmon from jail?"
mhm, mhm.
Like the guy that said, "Hey, I know
Yep,
who you are and you were in jail." Like that's someone that placed him there at that time. And of
yep,
course, the fertilizer scene where they kind of are playing this little game where they don't want to say what the other one's thinking. Obviously,
mhm,
James LaGrosse is thinking, "You're buying fertilizer because 'cause you're a terrorist. You're not someone that buys fertilizer, young lady." And, she's thinking like, "Oh, man, I really gotta fool this guy, so that
yeah,
he'll give me but I also don't wanna be caught." Just little tiny flourishes like that. Or, like, for instance, Alia Shawkat was named Surprise. That was her
mhm,
character's name. She was kind of looking, I think, at Josh with suspicion,
yep,
or maybe not even suspicion, but he read it as suspicion. She was just trying to be nice to him maybe and talk to him at that party because he's such a loner and he's
yeah,
so depressing as a person to be around. But you can see him thinking, she's on to me, you know?
yeah.
It's his own paranoia creeping in. But is it valid? It might be. That was what was so great, was these little tiny little scary moments that could become something bigger in the long run. I think that's part of the excellent pacing of the movie.
I mean, exactly. And I think that when we're watching movies, and it's easy for us to separate ourselves and be like, oh, well, I wouldn't react that way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, put yourself in that situation where, like, sometimes I was thinking, oh, he's really not doing a good job at like hiding, concealing that he had
He is
any
not.
involvement. But then, like, also if you find out that someone died, you probably also gonna be like, now I'm like fully freaked out because I this is supposed to be a thing and that it should have been very clear that we had no involvement in it. But now there's a death involved. Because even speaking of this is maybe a bit of a bigger moment, but when there's the cop like the police blockade and they're stopping every
Yeah.
car
Yes.
and there's a shot of like his wet shoes and you think, well, maybe the cop is gonna see that his shoes are wet and might make a
Mhm.
connection, but she just, you know, is like, okay, go on your way. Um that's also another great scene. There are a lot, like you
Oh,
said, a
yeah.
lot of great little moments of tension that do complement the bigger amount. Like there's not a huge amount of big tension scenes, but because we have those other ones to complement it, it really makes it worthwhile. Even I'm wondering how you feel about, and I was wondering because it was the first time I'd watched it, if she was going to show the explosion or even if it was going to be very loud
Oh.
in the background. I didn't think that she would. I would have been a little bit shocked if we got like a huge explosion scene. In a Reichardt film, I would have been like, okay, do you? I'll trust you. But I do love that it would just kind of like a little blip in the background because what was more tense was what was leading up to that. The explosion itself is kind of an afterthought. If
Yeah.
I don't know, that's how I read
So
it.
so Kelly, I just really think we need to show the explosion, in this scene. It's like it needs to be big, like, we need to make the audience, like, feel like they're getting exploded on, That's the note that, she wrote
Yeah,
down. Um, I liked that she did not show the explosion. I wanna
yeah,
say the first time I saw this, I was so wrapped up in it
I know.
that I didn't even think about the explosion, and I'm so happy she didn't show it. It would have
Yeah.
been pointless. It would have not because what you really wanna show is the characters' reaction, their faces. She knows what's
Mhm,
important to show.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and, they didn't really even show the murder. I would say that was pretty obfuscated by the smoke not the smoke, the steam in the steam
Yeah.
room. It was very artistically, kind
Mhm,
of not
mhm.
shown.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, because we're kinda leading up to that moment, in the film where at this point, uh, Josh and Harmon have been talking on the phone even though they know they're not supposed to,
Yeah.
because Dina's been calling Harmon saying that she obviously feels very guilty, and she's been kind of hinting to other people that they had an involvement, and it's a matter of time before they're found out. And Josh just doesn't really want to be found
That
out,
cannot
as,
happen. Yeah.
obviously no one would want to. And depending on your personality, you're going to navigate that whatever way you choose. He chose to be like, well, I need to cut the source, the hanging, thread at this point. And he eventually kills her. He strangles her. Um, I
In a horrible
personally,
way.
in a very bad way, because I'm sure
Yeah.
it was just like it was obviously very hot in that room.
Yeah.
This feels like a
Choking
bad
her to
time
death. Jeez.
overall. But I think choking to death because okay, by the time we get to that scene where he's watching her outside of the shop, you know what he's gonna do. You're just
Mhm.
wondering how he's gonna do it. Um, and I think Reichardt kind of follows not speaking for her, but I think she follows the method of like, if it was gonna be by a weapon, I would have shown it beforehand.
Mm.
It wouldn't just be a surprise gun that came out of nowhere or anything
Right.
else. So I think a strangulation is very personal. It takes
Yes.
for you to be like, I am doing this and I have to look you in the eye while it's being done because he is looking her in the
Yeah,
eye
with
while
my
it's
own
being
2
done.
hands. Yeah.
At that point, I wasn't surprised that he did it. But I know that, as we mentioned briefly there, that a lot of people don't love the ending, but it seems like you and I both do. I think it fits. It's not nice that it
No.
needed to get there, but I wasn't surprised at all. I don't know how you feel like on your if you remember your first watch and how you felt about when it got to that moment.
I thought it made total sense for his character. You could see him cracking more and more after, the news came out. It is just something logically that his character would do. Same for Dina, and same for Harmon. They all reacted, as those characters would legitimately react. I can totally imagine Dina having a skin rash because of her guilt.
Yeah.
She's an emotional, well, emotionaler person,
Hmm.
compared to these 2 guys, and she, I think, has a serious sense of right and wrong that would lead her to do the right thing by turning herself in. That is what her character believes in.
Hmm.
Harmon, of course, would disappear. He would go underground. He already lives in a trailer. Like he's already set up to leave at a moment's notice. And truly, I think it's interesting. She went with his perspective of the three of them, but
Hmm.
Jesse Eisenberg was just he was planning every single detail perfectly. He was making sure everything was in place. He was making sure every little plan element would fit in perfectly to make this happen, and then it didn't happen. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
happened, but with a terrible result. He was like, "We gotta get the IDs, we gotta pay in cash, we gotta do all of this stuff to cover cover ourselves," but it didn't work out, and that is what is so interesting to see and happen to anyone, to a character, because the second half is him spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
Total paranoia. He's completely lost his way. He feels guilty. He doesn't know what to do. And he reacted so irrationally, to compliment him acting, you know, planning so well rationally in the first half. So his character, it went off, it went further out into space than he already was. Like,
Yeah.
he was on the fringes of society before, and then this awful thing happened, and now he's even further into the fringes, which really the ending for me wasn't the strangulation, it was this wonderful shot of the mirror in the
Yes.
sporting goods store. I thought that is genius, because what he's doing, is obviously fleeing, trying to make a new life for himself. He drove all night, he's in a new town, he wants to work at a camping store, which is
Hmm.
also, I think, visually very fitting because it's kind of like this fake plastic, version of nature. He now has to work at a store where people experience nature on vacation, where they're skiing or they're, camping, and it's not really being connected to nature, not in the way that he is. So it's
Hmm.
like a kind of a slap to his face. And then he's like, "Hey, I'd like a job here." And they hand him an application, and he has to give his number, he has to give an address, and the reflecting, security mirror is him kind of realizing at this moment he's never gonna get away from this. They will always, like, he will be found because everyone is findable now. Everyone has a phone number. You can't even get a job without having a phone
I
number and
know.
an email. He can't even run away. So that's what that was the that was what the ending meant to me, was him just getting trapped by the very society that he wanted to fix. Yeah. What did you think of the final shot?
No, that was really beautifully said. I can't even add more to that, but I do want to respond to it because I'm so glad that you brought that up and your perspective on it because it did add more to what I thought. Like I hadn't even thought about kind of the concept of him thinking that he was pretty much off grid because he uses like a flip phone. But we know that this pretty much in modern times. It's not supposed to be an older time than it is,
Right.
filmed in. And he thinks he's off grid, but there's no way to be off grid. And even though this is 12 years ago, and 12 years ago was very different, as we all know, than now, but still, he's getting into an age where it's impossible not to find someone, because
Yeah.
everyone's information is out there, and he's now there's no way that he's not going to be linked to Dina's murder. But I love what she does of still leaving it open ended. You know,
Yes.
she's never going to be like, hey, here's a shot of the cops rolling up.
Right, right.
Or this is a shot
No.
to solidify that he fully got away with it. It's just like, we don't know
It was
what's
so
happening
much more
tomorrow.
existential. Yeah, ugh,
Yeah.
it was a real thinking man's ending. It was really up for interpretation, and that's what I love and respect about her. She doesn't spoon feed it.
Which that's why I was not confused or disagreed with like the people who don't like the ending, but I'm just like, she's not saying there's a definite he got away with it or he's a fully bad person. He made bad decisions. Now, we all make bad decisions. A lot of us don't murder people, but who knows? We all probably have it in us to do that at some point. Not giving
I know
myself
I do.
away. I for sure do. When I'm driving around, I'm on the verge of, something illegal. That's for sure. I love that she's never like, this is concrete ending. And we get that
Mm,
in all of her films. She always wants to, and I say this knowing because she said it explicitly in interviews that she never wants to define an ending for any of her stories. She's like, now it's up to you. It's now your art to interpret. Once I'm done filming, I've edited it and it's out in the world. It's no longer my piece. It's for you, the viewer. And I love that because some people hold their art so close to them that they're like, no, this is what it means. This. I
mm.
think that art should be subjective. It should never be objective. And I love that she's just like, if you view this about this character, that's great. The way you process the piece. People being upset about it, she's like, that's fair. And if you love it, that's also fair, which is great. I'd love to be that type of person
Oh,
with
yeah.
anything that
I
I
would love to
release.
have that amount of patience. Um,
Yes.
really, she is a patient filmmaker, in the truest
Hmm.
sense of the word. She trusts her audience, patient with pacing and with the story. We see so much of that not happening with, films these days,
Yeah,
and she's just, like, one of the last ones to do it.
I know. If it's not obvious, we're very grateful. And Kelly, if you're listening,
We
there's
love
always
you.
room for you on the show also. We also love you.
Oh,
Yes.
we would love that, yeah.
Um, you can make a guest appearance in a Royal Film Club if you want. When
Oh, that
you're
would be great.
on the West Coast filming something, if you want to hop on, since you're in that time zone. Open invitation, even though it's not my film club. I'm still inviting you on Greg's behalf. um, I do want to give a bit of context for the listeners on where she was at in her career at this point, and then we'll get back into kind of our thoughts on the film. But just for the second segment of before and after. So Night Moves is 2013. What she does right before this is Meek's Cutoff, which we've mentioned. And that's 2010. So that's 3 years before this. And in plainest word, it's a Western because it is, but it's the Kelly Reichardt version of a Western. To put it simply, it's kind of about a group of settlers who are lost on their route and seek help of a native man to ensure their safety on to their final destination. And in true Reichardt fashion, it's very meditative. It's covertly political, I would say, um, because it's tackling, the concept of settlers who
Mhm.
are on land that's not theirs and going on a route to join other
Yeah.
settlers. Um,
It's people that have never been in this environment before. They've never
exactly.
traveled like this. They are dumb for doing this, and yet they
Mhm.
have this idea that they deserve the land. they don't even know the land. And I agree it was political also in the sense that it was historically accurate. The women
Mhm.
were not making these conversations. They were not having these conversations. A lot of the shots is the women trying to eavesdrop on what the men are deciding to do.
Mhm.
Um, and hey, there's other Western feminist films where the woman is like shooting everyone, in a blaze of glory. But this is an accurate, again, accurate portrayal. It was women that didn't even want to go on this trip
I know.
being forced to.
No, I think that's like the perfect way to describe it, that it is more of an accurate, realist feminist Western as opposed to something like 40 Guns, which I love, which is the Barbara Stanwyck, Sam Fuller film where she is guns a-blazing, and that's more of a
Mhm.
revisionist feminist Western, um,
Yeah.
and which we all love. You
Sure.
it's nice to have both things, but realistically, being put in that moment in time in history, the women would be more like the women in Meek's Cutoff. They wouldn't be
Yeah.
given
Yeah.
the agency that they would have been given in 40 Guns, which is Reichardt's always going to be a realist. Um,
Yes.
doesn't matter the genre that she's in. She's just like, well, what's the actual situation
Yeah. What would
here?
actually play out here?
Yeah. It's always nice to have both things, but I think that it's good to have realistic approaches to um, period films instead of
Mhm.
glorifying moments in history that were obviously not good. Like that's just not a good time. Like
Oh, can
realistically.
I tell you, I am working on a certain reboot of a pioneer story at my job,
Okay.
and it is so sugary. It's Aryan. Like I don't know how to. It's like so
Mm,
like I won't say what it is, but
mhm.
everyone is beautiful. Everyone's making
Yeah.
daisy chains. Um, Pa's cooking up, campfire cornbread and then playing the violin. Like it is so cheesy, and that is, yeah, I, yeah, it's so wrong because, settlement culture is just like a topical issue. I think still even
Yeah.
today, um,
Mhm.
and it's never really portrayed in the way that it actually happened.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
very rare, and then when it is, it's kind of like it is whether it's meant to be overtly political or not, it still ends up being a statement, to just be like,
Yes.
"Hey, this is actually how it was," or at least as close to how it was, for these group of people in that time, which is, great. And it also is a Michelle Williams starring film, so it kinda leads into because before that, she would have done Wendy and Lucy with her, and Meek's cut off, and now she's not in Night Moves, but Night Moves still has names, like, Jesse Eisenberg, as we said, is his name, Dakota Fanning's name, and Peter Sarsgaard is also he would have been probably at the time a lesser name, but people who watch films would 100%
Mhm.
know, sorry, who Sarsgaard is, and they definitely know who he is, now. So we got 3 stars in
Powerhouses.
a very small independent film, which is fantastic, and which leads us into what she does right after this, 3 years after this, in 2016, which is Certain Women, which I think really brought forth a bigger audience for her. I know that Old Joy was really what set her off and became, at least an indie darling. But by the time Certain Women came out, uh, she definitely was like, "Okay, everyone wants to see what the next" well, everyone. I feel like I always say this where I'm like, "Okay, my world is a lot smaller," where I'm like, "Everyone wants to see the Kelly Reichardt."
Yeah. Not everyone wants yeah.
And it's
I
like,
know what
"Yeah,
you
no, this
mean.
movie's on 2 screens, so not everyone."
Yeah. Obviously, America's clamoring for the next Kelly
And I'm like,
Reichardt
"Yeah,
movie.
no, it's just the people that I know." But, in at least the film world, and I think now even slightly outside of the film world, because she has these big names, people are like, okay, who's this director? Who's getting? Because the mastermind has Josh O'Connor, who's obviously like a really big name. Yeah,
He's
he's
having a
having a moment.
moment.
Is the best way to do it because who knows? He's doing a lot of great work with a lot of lesser known directors. But Michelle Williams is really the one who her partnership with Kelly has
Yes.
been fantastic, and she's in Certain Women. We've also got Laura Dern. We've got Kristen Stewart, who was also huge at that point. She's fantastic. And then we get an early Lily Gladstone, who was not the Lily Gladstone that we have now. That should have been her breakout, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
really wasn't her breakout. It was Killers of the Flower Moon. But those of us in the know would have seen her in Certain Women.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think Night Moves could have worked with one of her other stock actors, like Michelle Williams or who's the one from Old Cow?
Oh, First Cow?
Or
The No,
First
I
Cow,
know what
not
you
Old
meant.
Cow.
But John McGarrow,
The cow one. Oh yeah, yeah.
I
He's like
I
her new
feel like it
muse, I
could have worked
think.
with him. Michelle, no. I don't know that she could
Yeah,
have
agreed.
done, and I hate to say this, maybe it's an age thing. I think it required someone younger than Michelle Williams at the time.
Yeah, someone more idealistic in
I mean,
their
Michelle Williams
youth.
could do anything. I'm sure she would have done a great performance, but I do like that she went with brown-haired Dakota Fanning. I think the brown hair looks great
Mm.
on her, and it fits. It kind of accepts you more as her
Yes.
being that character. I think a blonde-haired, yeah,
She looks
she looks
normal.
normal.
Yeah.
She just looks like a normie on the street.
She looks like a regular person, exactly, which you don't see that much nowadays. Sorry,
No,
I'm
we
getting on my
really
high
don't.
horse, but Kelly likes natural-looking actors. They are the most
Mhm.
realistic, relatable faces
I
to
mean,
see.
as someone who watches an insane amount of old movies where it's like the weirdest looking person is like the star of a movie, but it feels so nice to be like, oh, no one in this movie looks alike. But even like the big stars who were like gorgeous also didn't look like every other person. Um, you know, not to be that nostalgia person, but it just feels so weird that even in a time where we were growing up, like both of us being born in the 90s, I'm like, I do remember a time when people like ugly people got to be in movies.
People have more interesting faces. Now, I think a lot of, actors
Yeah.
are so owned by studio systems, they feel like they have to do things to their faces, and I live in LA, I see a lot of it. It is so
Yeah.
distracting to me to see, like, lip fillers in, say, a period piece, um, and I just, yeah, I support the real looking actors, the ones with the most movable
Exactly.
faces.
And like what she does, she still has big names. Like Laura Dern's a huge name, Michelle Williams, Kristen Stewart, but they all
Yeah,
look like incredibly normal human beings in those movies.
they look like their characters, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Kristen Stewart, and I am truly. I say this as a person who's only ever seen the first Twilight because I always say that I'm a huge Kristen Stewart fan, and people think it's because I grew up around the Twilight time. I'm like, no, this is pre that. This is Panic Room. This is how long it's been for me. Um, but she looked very much like not done up. I was like, is there an ounce of makeup on her face? I'm sure there was for the camera a little bit, but it's great to see
She was playing like a community college professor in a small town, and that's not someone with a designer wardrobe or
the
crazy
length of
makeup.
the jean skirt that she showed up in. I was like, that's a look. We're not getting that look anymore. So just kind
No.
of lends
RIP.
yeah, really RIP to a certain time in history there. Wow, what a time. I definitely yeah, I don't know if there's any video or picture footage of me in one of those, I'm sure, and hopefully that never gets out.
Drop it in the
Ugh,
description.
I was pretty good at in the 2000s of just refusing to allow myself to get photographed. So I feel like I've come unscathed. I was like, no, I feel like this is just not going to be good for me 10 years from now to have this out there.
That's very precocious.
I was just anti anything popular. So I didn't have Facebook. And because I didn't have Facebook, there was no pictures of me out on the internet, leading, full circle, Facebook, Jesse Eisenberg. Uh, but um, it just kind of lends in getting back to what we were actually talking about. It does lend to her realism in movies. Night Moves, even though unfortunately it seems to be kind of viewed as a lesser of her. It's kind of the forgotten one. I don't know how you feel. Do you know that many people who talk about it?
I feel like
Yeah.
literally no one, and I am a champion of this movie, and I hate to be that guy, but I like this movie before everyone else did. And unfortunately, when Felicia approached me to do a Reichardt film, I pretty much demanded we do this
Which I'm
movie.
glad.
Uh, and she had no choice in the matter. Um, because I feel like no
Yeah.
one's seen it. And I think maybe going back to what you were saying before about how she does these interviews, I truly think that when she dies, people will
Hmm.
realize what a genius filmmaker she is, and this movie will
Yeah.
only get revisited because she'll have like a
Hmm.
retrospective. And yeah, no one has really given this movie its flowers. I'm so glad you feel the same about it, because I was honestly worried you weren't going to feel as strongly about
To be
Night Moves
honest,
as I
I went
do.
into it. I went into it open, but I was like, there is a chance. I didn't read anything about it beforehand. I didn't read anyone's opinions about it, but I was like, I kind of knew that it was the forgotten one, and I was like, I wonder if there's a reason why, and maybe I'll feel the same. But I was shocked. I was like, this, I'm enjoying every minute of this, and this is a fantastic watch. And I was just like, I know that it has a different feel a little bit from her other films, but I'm like, you can't expect someone to do the exact same film over and over again because she's not doing that in her other films. But I know they were expecting
Yeah.
they were expecting a certain women. They're expecting a Wendy and Lucy or a First Cow, which this is not. And I still think it's great. And I agree fully that with time, I think this is one of those movies with time that the aging of the film is going to just do its service as opposed to a disservice. Um, yeah. I mean, I always say that about my favorite directors. I'm like, you'll see when they're dead. And I'll be there and I'll be like, I told you so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's gonna be
I
a
love
sweet
that.
moment.
I love being really smug about. I'm like, okay, now that I'm no longer
Me
sad about their
too.
passing, guess what? Read my letterbox review because I'll see that you guys are gonna be changing your tune. Um, but that's what she did right before and after Night Moves. Um, one of the last things that I want to talk about this film, and I'll pass it off to you if there's anything that we missed that we haven't talked about that you want to chat about. But one of her major trademarks that we haven't kind of discussed too much. We talked about the shooting of the outdoors, but this film is another Pacific Northwest film that she's been filming over there quite a bit throughout her career, and this takes place in Oregon. And there are a lot of very beautiful shots of just trees, water, and the outdoor, and all the characters living outdoors. We don't really get much city life apart from maybe at the end, and even then, it doesn't seem like a huge city. It's just the store we're getting in like a plaza that
The
yeah, who
suburbs,
knows
yeah.
where that is. But like, even the shots on the farm and them working on the farm is beautiful. And it feels like its own little character in the film. I just think that I was talking to another guest previous to this of how it never feels like she's trying to beautify the outdoor space that she's shooting in and just capturing it as is, and it just happens to be beautiful, which I think is also a statement in itself that relates to the
Mhm.
subject matter that like this is a beautiful thing,
Yes.
and there's some bad things happening to it. So, as you've seen a few of her other films as well, and her use of the outdoor space, is very obviously very important in this film. I wonder how you feel about just kind of using it as its own statement.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I'm glad you brought this up. Her use of the landscapes, especially in this movie because it does fit into the greater narrative of like
Mhm,
the environment. Um, I was watching an interview with her where they were discussing this movie specifically, but also all of her other movies, and she said something really interesting. Something like, it's so easy to shoot outdoors. It's when you have to shoot in a room with four walls that it gets complicated.
mhm,
And I totally feel that when I watch her movies. I feel like the nature around the shot just kind of naturally frames every single image in this like perfect way. And I'm sure it takes
mhm,
a lot of work to frame these shots outside, but it just feels so natural. Um, and I'm not saying her interiors are terrible by any means, but, I think she just has, like, a serious appreciation for the natural beauty and landscape that is
mhm,
given to her, so, of course, she needs to utilize it, and, I do think, this type of person that lives in Oregon also lives, it's accurate that they would live in Oregon. These, co-op organic farmers, they're all white, and, they're all living off grid. They're teaching their
mhm.
children, outside of the public school system. There was a line that Catherine Waterston said about, needing
Yeah.
to do math work, so they're just, it would make sense that they are in this natural, gorgeous, beautiful fall colors, it's just like, of course they would live here. Um, these characters hate society. They need to be surrounded by trees. Um, and to that effect, also obviously Meek's Cutoff, great
Mhm,
cinematography. It's all outdoors. There are these little ants in this vast landscape, and you really only can feel how small and insignificant and vulnerable they are when they're, on this landscape backdrop. So she is, yeah, I can't think of a movie she's done in a city that it's just her style, I guess.
city shots and stuff, but it's never taking place in a city for the most part. And I agree. I feel like it's those shots outdoors feel freer, and the indoor shots feel claustrophobic,
Mhm,
especially in this movie because obviously when they're indoors is when they're, you know, planning, what they're planning.
mhm.
Um, so I think that's great, and like you said, all the characters feel so in place with it. It just feels like I don't know, to be honest, if they were actual acting extras or if it was just people they just picked up that they happened to be living there because there's even the random shot when Josh is obviously at like a farmer's market selling and he kind of has like a stare off with this dude who has a cat on a leash on a kitten on his back.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
the
I was
crust
like,
punk.
we
Yeah,
all know
that
one
was
of
funny.
those. Respect. Love to see a kitten. Love to see any sort of cat in a movie. I thought that scene was so funny in a way that was like, it's not making fun of this character or these people. It's just like, this is a matter of fact. But even just the way people dress, or even the guy when they're at the campsite and they're at the table and some guy was just like, "Oh, I'm just kinda walking around." He obviously wants to make conversation with them, and they're like,
Oh, that was hilarious.
get the fuck away from us. And just the way he's dressed, I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, as someone who goes to a lot of, provincial or federal parks here in Canada, that seems like someone you
It's a
bump
type
into,
of
and you're
person.
like, they mean well.
Oh, the city
Yeah.
dwellers that, they only go out into nature, every once in a while. They don't really know what it's like out here. They see nature as like a fun side quest, activity, vacation. They will return to their, industrial lives, at the end of it.
Yep.
So
Which is a fact for a lot of us, unfortunately, just because that's how life works. But it kind of ties into
yeah.
the ending, what you're saying. That's now who he's going to have to be amongst, if he gets that job. That being said, to be honest, I don't know if he's getting that job because he's being real sketch.
Oh my gosh, he's just like Mr. Frowntown the whole movie. He's not even faking
Truly, I
it.
was like, why are you being so weird and like caressing
Yeah.
the sleeping bags if you know that you want to try and apply to this job? If I was the employee, I'd be like, please don't hire this
Yeah.
person. He's making me uncomfortable.
They clearly just killed someone. Yeah.
That too.
Um, Also, what was funny to me was when they were actually picking up the
Uh-huh.
boat, Night Moves, and Dakota Fanning had this little backstory, like, "Oh, honey, we're buying this boat for, we're gonna get a lot of use out of it." And Jesse Eisenberg is just like non-responsive. He's not even playing along. He's not even being a
I know.
believable, you know, actor for the situation. Just in his head, just thinking, not not uh not talking to anyone, like so good. Such a good
It's
performance.
really definitely underrated. I think we can safely say that this is definitely an underrated film of hers, but just in general, and probably an underrated film in all of those actors' filmographies, to be honest. Um,
Yeah,
Wondering if
yes.
there's anything that we haven't mentioned so far that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think we hit
I
all the
think so.
nails on the head. Um, this was a delight, to talk about this movie with you. I feel like we're just
I know.
psychically linked, in our
I
tastes.
know.
It's kinda crazy,
It's been good.
how in
It's been
sync we
good.
are.
I was so glad, to be honest, because I am actually genuinely grateful that you brought it up because I didn't think that I was gonna cover this movie in this series because, I just didn't I hadn't seen it, and I knew it was one of her kind of forgotten, and I was like, "Do I cover it?" But when you were like, I would have a lot to say about it," I was like, "You know what? Fuck it."
We
Like,
we
this
have
is
to.
great. I think this is a better conversation than just kind of being like, "Oh, this is a big hitter. Let's talk about that." Because I am doing a lot of her other bigger films, so I think it's great to have a balance, and hopefully, I don't know, hopefully we spark a movement.
Ugh, that would be so great. We could really ignite a change on Letterboxd from a 3.4 to a 4.9. We
That's
could
the
do it.
hope. The people on Letterbox, I don't know how much faith I have in them, but, um, I hope. At least get people rewatching. For the people who have watched it and they need a second watch to open their eyes. But I know that you gave your double bill, which was How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and I love the explanation about it. Um, I just had a quick one, before we wrap up, because I was thinking of other films that kind of tackled characters getting involved in some sort of environmental mess, and for some reason, I thought of The China Syndrome, which is a James Bridges film with,
Hmm.
Jane Fonda, which makes sense, for her, 1970 to be in a film that has to do with nuclear plants. Um, and it's Michael Douglas also in this film, and it's very of its time in terms of 70s approach to it, and I say that because it's a bit more of a thriller, but it's not as explainy, that's not a great word, but as things
Mhm.
that would be later, like from the 80s or 90s, where they're like, we need to give a background. They don't give backgrounds like they Kelly Reichardt doesn't do in this film. Um, there's obviously more of a Hollywood factor in it because Jane Fonda and Michael Douglas not being that big of a star at that point, but Jane Fonda was obviously Jane Fonda, so she's the main draw in that film. It's a different vibe. I think I would watch that first to see what they did back then, and then I'd watch this later because I do think Night Moves is a better film, and just to see how these stories are continuing to be told, unfortunately, because it's just a problem that has not been solved, and we all are asking the question, how do you solve it? So I think that's two good perspectives that you could take on an issue throughout history, film history. I'm sure there's plenty of movies about this, but that's the one that popped in my head for some reason.
That's a really good one, especially because of the time period difference. I think it's such an interesting contrast. It's nuclear power in the 70s. That was a big issue then, and now it's just kind of
I
like a
know.
a general shittiness, a little individual shittinesses throughout the United States,
The world too. As much as
and nuclear power. That's still an issue.
yeah, it's I know states obviously there's a problem, but I think it's easy for the rest of us to blame just America when I'm like, there's problems everywhere. There's problems in Canada too. That's a whole other conversation. I definitely don't want to open that up right now because I think we've had a good conversation. So we should end it on a nice note. Less of a bummer than this movie. But Frida, thank you so much for bringing this along. I'm
Oh, thank you.
talked to a couple people after watching this and was like, have you seen this? Because I really think that you would get something out of it. I think with maybe if you had watched it in 2013, I get maybe not liking it, but I truly believe that either on a second watch or a watch now that the film is older would do it a great service. So I'm so grateful that you brought it forth for this series because I think it's adds a great value.
Well, I don't even know what to say to that. I'm honored, I'm flattered. I'm so humbled to be here, in your presence because you really know what you're talking about, and nothing but respect,
It's
really.
mutual. It's very mutual. So I appreciate it. Seeing Faces in Movies is an official podcast of the World Film Club. It's hosted and edited by Felicia with intro music by Lamar Walker. If you like what you heard, let us know at seeingfacesinmovies.com or send us an email at seeingfacesinmovies@gmail.com. And while you're at it, please subscribe and rate the show wherever you listen to your podcasts, and stay tuned for our next episode on Wendy and Lucy. Watch more movies, and we'll catch you next time.